Hello everyone. Before we start, please make sure to like and subscribe, and leave a comment with your location and the time you're watching. That way, YouTube would keep showing you videos like this. Let's get back to the story. Story 1. The Midnight Caroler. My name is Rob Rains, and what happened on Christmas Eve 2019 still makes me check my locks twice every night. I was house-sitting for my sister Michelle in her rural Connecticut home while she spent the holidays in Florida with her husband and kids. They'd be gone for 10 days, and honestly, I was looking forward to the peace and quiet. I'd just gone through a rough breakup and needed time alone to clear my head. Michelle's house was beautiful, a restored colonial from the 1890s, sitting on 5 acres of wooded property. The neighborhood was old, the kind where houses sat far apart, separated by thick woods and long driveways that wound through the trees. Her nearest neighbor was at least a quarter-mile away. During the day, it felt peaceful and private. At night, especially in winter when it got dark by 4:30 p.m., it felt isolated in a way that made me slightly uncomfortable. The first few days were exactly what I needed. I caught up on sleep, watched movies, and enjoyed the simplicity of not having to deal with anyone. Michelle had left the house decorated for Christmas, a huge tree in the living room, lights along the porch railing, wreaths on the doors. It felt cozy, and I found myself actually getting into the Christmas spirit despite everything going on in my personal life. Christmas Eve arrived, and I decided to make it special for myself. I cooked a nice dinner, poured myself some wine, and settled in to watch It's a Wonderful Life by the fireplace. The house was warm, the lights were twinkling, and for the first time in weeks, I felt genuinely relaxed. Outside, fresh snow had started falling around 8 p.m., covering everything in a clean white blanket. It looked like a Christmas card. It was around 11 p.m. when I heard the singing. At first, I thought it was coming from a radio or maybe someone's phone outside. But as I muted the TV, I realized it was a woman's voice, clear and haunting, singing Silent Night in perfect pitch. The voice had an operatic quality to it, trained and beautiful, but there was something off about hearing it out here in the middle of nowhere at this hour. I walked to the front window and pulled back the curtain. Standing at the end of the driveway, barely visible under the single streetlight about 100 feet away, was a woman in a long white dress. No coat, no hat, no gloves, just that thin white dress in 20-degree weather. Her dark hair hung long and straight down her back, and even from this distance, I could see she was staring directly at the house. She sang the entire song without moving, without looking away, without even seeming to breathe between verses. When she finished, there was complete silence, the kind of silence that feels heavy and wrong. Then she started walking up the driveway toward the house, still staring, her movements slow and deliberate. Her feet crunched in the fresh snow, but otherwise, there was no sound. My heart started pounding. I locked the front door and backed away from the window, trying to convince myself there was a logical explanation. Maybe she was drunk and confused. Maybe she was having some kind of mental health crisis. Maybe she'd been in a car accident nearby and was in shock. But none of those explanations made sense with how deliberately she moved, how fixated she seemed on the house. I grabbed my phone and watched from the side of the window. She reached the front porch steps and stopped. Then she tilted her head slightly, like she was listening for something, and smiled. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was knowing, like she could see me hiding behind the curtain. The singing started again, but now it was coming from the back of the house. I ran to the kitchen window, and my blood turned to ice. She was there, pressed against the glass, her face inches from the pane. Her mouth was moving with the words of Silent Night, but I couldn't hear any sound. She was mouthing the words silently while staring directly at me with wide, unblinking eyes. Her breath fogged the glass in rhythm with the silent lyrics. Jesus Christ, I whispered, stumbling backward and nearly knocking over a chair. How did she get from the front to the back that fast? It was impossible. The house was large, and she would have had to run around the entire structure through deep snow to make it in that amount of time. But she hadn't been running. She'd been standing still at the front door just seconds ago. I called 911 with shaking hands. The dispatcher answered, and I tried to explain that someone was outside my house, that a woman was acting strangely and wouldn't leave. As I talked, I kept watching the kitchen window, but the woman was gone. Just the fog marks from her breath remained on the glass. Sir, can you describe what the person is doing right now? The dispatcher asked. She was just in my back window, but now I don't see her. She was singing, and she's not dressed for the weather, and something is really wrong here. Are your doors locked? Yes, everything's locked. Okay, I'm sending officers to your location. Can you stay on the line with me? I agreed and moved to the living room where I could see both the front door and the hallway to the kitchen. That's when I heard it, a soft tapping coming from upstairs. Not knocking, just gentle taps like fingernails on glass. She's upstairs now, I told the dispatcher, my voice cracking. She's tapping on a second-floor window. Sir, is there any way someone could access the second floor from outside? No, there's no ladder, no trellis, nothing. You need a ladder to reach those windows. The tapping continued, patient and rhythmic. Tap, tap, tap. Then it moved to a different window. Then another. She was moving along the entire second floor, tapping on each window as she passed, which was impossible unless she was somehow floating or walking on air. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, frozen, listening to the tapping make its way around the entire upper level of the house. When it reached the window at the end of the hallway, the one I could see from where I stood, I saw her face appear in the glass. Same expressionless stare, same slight smile. She pressed her palm against the window and then drew a heart in the condensation from her breath. The police are 3 minutes away, the dispatcher said. Can you stay where you are? She's drawing on the windows, I said numbly. She's on the second floor drawing on the windows. The tapping stopped abruptly. For a long moment, there was nothing but silence. Then I heard the sound of footsteps on a roof directly above me. Slow, measured footsteps walking back and forth across the shingles. Snow began falling past the windows as her footsteps disturbed it from the roof. She's on the roof now, I whispered. Then, as suddenly as it started, everything stopped. The footsteps ceased. The house went completely silent. I stood there breathing hard, phone pressed to my ear, listening for any sound at all. Red and blue lights finally appeared through the front windows. I'd never been so relieved to see police in my entire life. 2 officers approached the house, and I met them at the front door, explaining everything as coherently as I could. They searched the entire property with flashlights, the yard, the woods, around the house, even the roof using a ladder from Michelle's garage. They found footprints in the snow leading from the road up to the front porch. Then the prints simply stopped, as if she'd vanished in a thin air. There are no tracks leading away from the house, no tracks around to the back, and definitely no way she could have reached the second-floor windows or the roof. Are you sure you saw someone? One officer asked gently, probably thinking I'd been drinking or imagining things. I showed them the fog marks on the kitchen window where she'd been breathing. I showed them the heart drawn in condensation on the upstairs window. The marks were real. Someone had been there. The officers stayed for about an hour, checking everything multiple times. They found nothing else. No sign of the woman, no evidence of how she could have moved around the house the way she did. Before they left, one officer gave me his card and told me to call immediately if anything else happened. I didn't sleep at all that night. I sat in the living room with all the lights on and a kitchen knife on the coffee table in front of me, jumping at every small sound. When dawn finally came, I went outside to look at the footprints myself. They were there in the snow, clear boot prints coming from the road up the driveway to the porch. But the officer was right. They just stopped. There were no prints leaving, no prints going around the house. Just those tracks ending at the front steps, and then nothing. I called Michelle and told her everything. She went silent for a long time, and then she said something that made my skin crawl. Rob, did the woman have long dark hair? Was she tall and thin? Yes, why? The previous owners told us something when we bought the house. There's a local legend about a woman who died in the 1920s. She was an opera singer who lived in this house. On Christmas Eve, her husband murdered her during an argument. They say she still comes back on Christmas Eve, singing carols. We always thought it was just a story to make the house seem interesting. I packed my things and left that morning. I stayed in a hotel for the rest of Michelle's trip and only went back to her house with other people present. Michelle eventually sold the property 2 years later, not because of what happened to me, but because her daughter claimed she saw a woman in a white dress standing in her bedroom doorway one night, singing softly. I don't house sit anymore, and I definitely don't spend Christmas Eve alone in old houses. Sometimes I still hear that perfect, haunting voice in my dreams, singing Silent Night just outside whatever door or window I'm near. And every time, I wake up in a cold sweat, checking to make sure all my locks are secure.